And obviously I'm gonna be sort of turning it lefty-loosey, even though clearly not expecting to... What the? Hey YouTube, it's Faye, and for today's video, very highly requested, I'm going to be replacing the transmission filter on this Gen 2 Toyota Tundra. So welcome, I'm glad you're here, but before I get started with the DIY tutorial, I need to know, why are you watching this video? Is it for entertainment? Phenomenal. I hope you like it. Do you think that you need your transmission filter replaced? I'm sorry, but I'm gonna let you know right now, do not do this job. You do not need to do this job. This is such a highly requested video. I will show you how to do it if you truly desire to get this job done. This is by far the comment I get more than anything else on my how to drain and refill your sealed Toyota transmission video. People are like, you forgot the filter. Oh no. Oh no, my friends, I did not forget this at all. There is really no reason for you to replace this filter. Why am I doing it? All right, well, if you've watched all of my videos, then you know that I recently replaced a transmission in a Gen 2 Tundra. It grenaded with a new transmission used with unknown miles. So while I did my best to flush the lines and everything like that, after about an oil change worth of miles, I thought it was smart to just replace the filter and do a little health check and just make sure everything's going good on the truck. Spoiler alert, I wasted my time, and you will too. You're definitely gonna waste your time even more if this is an older transmission. You're gonna break a ton of bolts. It's gonna be a nightmare. It's gonna give you a massive headache, and you're gonna wish that you didn't do it. You probably have a shutter feel in your transmission, or maybe you have some solenoid codes, and you think, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna replace the transmission filter, and that's gonna solve them. Or you used to own an older American or I don't know, GM product of some sort, and changing the transmission filter was just part of routine maintenance and service, that something that you needed to do. This is not, and I'm not one to talk about lifetime anything. I don't like lifetime fluids, as you know. I make a video about how to change the lifetime fluid and how often you should. You should change this fluid every 60,000 miles, and you really don't need to change this ever. This is not actually a filter, it's called a strainer, and really all that it does is keeps big chunks from entering the valve body. I've never taken one of these apart and replaced it, and we're about to find out because I will dissect this and show you the inside and see if I wasted my time today. I'm sure that I did. I've never taken one of these apart and thought to myself, wow, I'm so glad I did that. No, it's always been a massive waste of time. So anyway, without further ado, now that you've sort of checked yourself while you're doing, and also if you're thinking, oh, I'm just gonna do it for good measure, you can actually over-service these transmissions. If you didn't have a massive implosion or catastrophic failure of the transmission, there really is no need to do this. So, with that being said, enjoy this worthless DIY tutorial. Let's get into it. Here are all the tools you're gonna need to do this job, starting with the stars of the show. This hammer and impact screwdriver with impact 10mm socket are absolutely imperative to getting this job done. Other sockets that you're gonna need are a 14, a short extension. I got a couple options here that I'm showing you, a 5mm hex key, and a 24mm shallow socket. And one thing I'm gonna say about this one is if you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, the front drive shaft gets in the way. So you can see this one's like super stubby. So I'm gonna recommend a super stubby. This does not have to be an impact socket. The 14mm also does not have to be an impact socket. I just grabbed this whole case to the back of my truck because I was doing a mobile job, and I like these little modular systems. These are actually designed to be used with the Klein Modbox system, but I just stack these all on top of each other, all the different kits that I have, and put them in the back of my truck, and it just keeps them from sliding around and all sorts of stuff. Also, I'm like, you know what? You are not gonna mistake at all what size sockets I'm using at any point in this video. This 5mm hex key is also from one of those sets that I have, and this is actually worth talking about. I normally reserve the plugs and the gaskets for like the stuff you need rather than the tools, but I just want to talk about this right now ASAP. I will link some check plugs. You can just get these cheap off of Amazon. The amount of times I've found these stripped and have really struggled to get these off is super annoying. So I think it's really worth it to just have these, and even if yours is fine, it's better to have it and not need it. And then of course, make sure you've got a nice healthy collection of drain plug gaskets. All right, I've also got 3 different ratchets, 1/4 inch drive, 3/8 and 1/2 inch drive, just depends on the sockets that you are gonna be using today. This plastic razor blade, just so that we can clean the sealing surface, which is also the aluminum bottom of the transmission body. So we're not gonna be putting like hard razor blades on there and causing any damage. We're gonna be using the plastic ones. Obviously a pocket screwdriver, another type of screwdriver. I'm not actually screwing with this. I am using that when I use this very ST special tool that I made, which is actually just a T-pin, because it's strong, connected to a zip tie, so I don't possibly lose it or leave it in the vehicle. You'll see what I mean by that in a second. Then we're also gonna need a way to measure transmission fluid temperature. As a Toyota tech, I'm very proud to show you how I use the factory scan tool GTS Plus, but not everyone's gonna be paying for a $500 cable and a $1,700, it's actually more than that, yearly subscription to that software if you don't need it. However, this is such a handy automotive tool, not just for checking fluid temperature, but also checking AC performance, temperature going in and out of your radiator. There's a whole bunch of different things you can use this tool for. So for 35 bucks, I'm assuming this is gonna be a lot more useful for the at-home DIYer. So I'll show you what comparison side by side with this tool and Toyota GTS Plus. If you're gonna be checking the transmission fluid temperature with an infrared thermometer rather than GTS Plus, you will need one additional tool, and this is one that I made, SSS special tool, or you can just use a paper clip. We're just gonna jumper 2 different terminals of the DLC together. A beaker is gonna be super helpful for adding the fluid at the end of this service. And then of course, a bunch of gloves. This is a very messy job. Some rags, bunch of cardboard is really nice. And holy smokes, I almost forgot to mention torque wrenches. Who am I? The heat is getting to me. Obviously we torque everything around here, so I've used a 1/4 inch drive as well as a 3/8 inch just because of the different sockets that I had. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know I'm a huge fan of this fluid transfer pump. Can you use something like this? Sure, I bought this solely for demonstration purposes. You can see it's never been used. There's a reason for that. It takes a long time and it's frustrating, but I understand if you don't do a lot of these services. Yes, you can get away with something like this, no problem. I prefer using this. We're gonna need a full box. We're gonna need 6 quarts of Toyota ATF WS. Obviously, we're also gonna need some brake parts cleaner and then some penetrating lubricant of your choice. Whatever you wanna use, I don't care. But they're all great. They're all good. Just use something. Here is the transmission pan gasket. I know, weird. It's an actual gasket. Very rare in Toyota land. And then here is the actual filter, aka strainer assembly, oil. There's the part number for that. And then don't forget the O-ring. There it is. And that's the part number. So, sir, the parts. As you can imagine, we are beginning underneath the truck, and I'm gonna drain the fluid out of the pan. Now I got my beaker underneath. You don't have to do this, but this just makes it easier in the end. So I'm gonna drain all the fluid out into the beaker, and I'm gonna measure it so that when I go to put fluid back in, I'll know just about how much I took out. Then when I go to adjust the level, I'm just gonna be closer, right? There's no guesswork. So we will lose a bunch more fluid as we do the job. Once we take the pan off, it's just gonna constantly drip this entire time. But doing this just gets us closer. So you can see it's not clean, it doesn't have to be clean, we're not saving it. And I've got my 14mm socket. Isn't that awesome? There's no mistaking that is a 14mm socket. Actually, it's an impact socket, but I just love how bright the numbers are and how clear it is. I'm like, that will be great for a YouTube video, because there's no mistaking what size that is. All right, and this fluid should be relatively clean. Oh my God, look at that. That is beautiful. It makes sense. It is after all brand new fluid, but still though, we're not gonna reuse this. The temptation is great. There's probably some stuff in there that we're not seeing, and do you hear me trying to justify it? Throw away the fluid, Faye. It's a good thing we started with a dirty beaker. Okay. As we're draining this beautiful fluid, look, yeah, we have a little bit of a gasket seat going on there. So, all right. So it's actually a good thing that we're doing this today. These little 10mm bolts are probably gonna give us hell. So I'm gonna do everything that I can to make my life easier. Most of these are pass-through. So as I'm draining the fluid, I'm gonna spray some penetrating lubricant up in there and see if I can get it to saturate every single one of these threads. Now, people, before you get your panties in a bunch, you know what I have? every single penetrating lubricant known to man. I have them all and I use them all. I like them all the same. They're probably all the same. I have PB Blaster. I got Freeze Off. I use transmission fluid and acetone. It doesn't matter what I use. One of you is gonna tell me that something else is better. So, help my engagement people. Tell me I should be using something different. Tell me what you're using. I guarantee you, I have it and I already use it. I'm gonna use even more just to trip you guys out. But honestly, we need all the help we can get here. We need all the help we can get here, people. Now with our penetrating lubricant, we need the help of some resonant frequency. Once again, can't possibly miss it, people. This is a 10 millimeter. And I actually do want an impact socket this time because I'm gonna be hitting it with a hammer because I'm using my impact screwdriver. I'm not expecting this to loosen anything. What I want to do is create a vibration between the dissimilar metals. And that's really what's going on. Steel going into the aluminum transmission. So I'm just gonna take this and do every single one of these. And obviously I'm gonna be sort of turning it lefty-loosey, even though clearly not expecting to, what the? Well, I loosened that one. We're gonna get good luck today. Y'all at home are doing this on your 200, oh my God! Y'all are gonna hate me so much at home doing this. Oh! This is not how the last one went for me. But believe it or not, that's exactly how the rest of the pan bolts went. But please do not be fooled by how easy I make this look right here, because this was how the last one went for me. And most likely what your experience is gonna be like if you have a transmission with over 200,000 miles on it. That's right, I snapped about half of the pan bolts using this exact same method, and I even broke an easy out. And tapping into the aluminum transmission body is extremely stressful and not fun. Now that all the bolts are loose, I'm just gonna go back in with some battery power. So I've got one bolt on one side and one bolt pretty much like kitty corner to it that I loosened several threads, but not all the way. So it's loose, but it's sitting up there. A lot more fluid is gonna drain out once you break the seal, so I like to give it just another minute to drain before I pull it down. Now I'm just gonna scrape some of the debris from the surface before I remove the filter and, I don't know, open up anything in there. I'm overthinking it, I know. I've just got this little plastic razor blade. This transmission is in phenomenal shape. This really did not need to be done at all, but we've got some material on the magnet there that we can clean off. Alrighty, so there you can see the sealing surface is clean all the way around. I don't want to drip transmission fluid on the camera. So now we're going to remove the filter here by removing these 4 10 millimeter bolts. And in the back here, it is held on with a little O-ring. So we're just going to pop it off the O-ring and take it off. And that is why I have the pin underneath it. And look at that. We're doing, I mean, my floor is a mess anyway, but we're doing surprisingly good here. Keeping the fluid contained. Up in there, you're gonna see the little O-ring. We cannot double O-ring this thing. Don't forget about this. Remove it, and of course compare it with your new one, especially if you didn't get yours at the dealership. And it looks like the parts department frickin' nailed it. Get a little bit of fluid on this before we install it. That looks really happy. All right, easy, let's get that back up in there. Push it all the way up and you'll just feel it seat, and then we're gonna thread in all of these bolts by hand. The torque spec is next to nothing. I can't remember exactly what it is. We're gonna look it up right now. We are torquing these bolts to 7 foot-pounds, people. 7 foot-pounds, that is all. All right, done. Now I'm going to clean the transmission pan, clean the little magnets up, and I'm gonna put the new gasket on and then get this back up in there. This is so easy. I'm also going to set this filter aside and we're gonna cut this open together and take a look inside and see, was it worth it? Was this time, energy, effort, and money worth it. These filters are pretty easy to take apart. They're just basically two composite pieces or plastic pieces stamped together. So what I'll do is I'll get a pair of dikes and just cut off one of the edges. You could do any edge. This was just easy accessible. And I'll take a little pocket pry bar and I'll just start prying along the edge and it will come apart. So you can see I've already got this one started. Inside the strainer, you can see that we have this mesh material. You can see how this material, this filter material, is just loosely held here between where the piece was clamped together. But once we get all this, then this part can come apart. And then we can open it up and see. Now this was sealed here. So the black that we're seeing here, that's not from taking the filter apart. So we've got one little thing there. I'm seeing, ooh, do you see that? I'm seeing like a little shiny sliver right there. Ooh, we've got one there. Let us drain everything. Good enough. Get this side of the way. So you can see here in the pan we have these little magnets, and they do have a little bit of buildup on them. So I'm gonna take these out and I'm gonna clean them. You can also see, I know it's hard to capture on camera, but I'm doing my best, people, but you can see that there's a little bit of sparkles there. So who knows if that's from this transmission being so young that it's still breaking in, or if that is from the grenaded transmission. But either way, all right, let's get these guys out of here. That looks really good. And while I'm here really quick, I'm just gonna install the new drain plug with the crush washer. Obviously just hand tight, I will torque it. To clean the magnets, I really do like to run these through a solvent tank, but I'm not fancy enough to have one. So we're just gonna clean them with some brake clean. Here is the new gasket. Do note here that there are little spacers built into the gasket, so just verify that they are all present and accounted for. These are actually going to help achieve the proper amount of squish of the gasket once we torque the bolts. Next, right before we install the pan, let's wipe down the gasket sealing surface one last time and just ensure that there's no ATF that is dripped on there. Let's get this thing installed. I like to go around and install all the bolts loosely first. All right, now once they're all in, I am gonna go in with some extremely gentle low torque battery power. Now the torque spec for these bolts is extremely low, 62 inch-pounds. All right, that's less than the filter, all right? So I'm not even sure if I want to model this behavior. Depending on how powerful your battery operated impact is, you might just want to use hand tools for this. Either way, you're gonna tighten in a star pattern, and I like to start from the inside and then I just kind of work my way around the entire gasket until everybody is hand snug, and then we'll go back in with the torque wrench. And speaking of torquing, we cannot forget the drain plug that we installed hand tight earlier. 15 foot-pounds. So here's the fluid that we drained out. Clearly we lost a little bit, right? We didn't catch everything, but this is just gonna get us a good baseline, help me figure out how much I should fill just right off the bat to make the fluid level check process go a little bit faster. So you can see we've got 4.5 liters here, and I'm gonna dump this out, wipe this clean, and then fill it up with brand new WS fluid and dump that into my fluid transfer pump. This thing is phenomenal. So now I'm gonna set a baseline for the pump, because you can't just put 5 quarts in here, because what will happen, or 4.5 liters, because what's gonna happen is there's always gonna be some residual left over. So I start by pumping out everything until it won't pump anymore. And then there is a residual left over in there, but that's okay. We don't mind, because that's never gonna make it, it's never gonna become part of the fluid that we're trying to put in, if that makes sense. There we go. Okay, perfect. And I should also mention that the only fluid I ever put in this pump right here is ATF So there's no cross-contamination happening at all. Okay, so now I know that whatever I add into here will all get into the transmission. Here is our beloved fluid, the ATF This is the only fluid that goes in this transmission. There is no equivalent. There is no replacement. No, the BG is not superior. No, the Valvoline does not come close. This is the only fluid you're going to use in this transmission. Okay? Don't blame me if anything goes wrong if you did not take this advice. There we go. So let's get this in our transfer pump. Up here, we have the fill plug. It's a little hard to see from down here, especially in the four-wheel drive. It's kind of, you know, obviously in between the front drive shaft and the pan. So we're gonna need a thin socket for that, or a shorty socket for that rather. And then of course the drain plug and the check plug. We'll get to that in just a second. But right now we're just gonna need a 24 millimeter to get to the fill plug. You can tell it's the fill plug because it has WS written on it. Also, the fill plug has a little O-ring, which I'll check the condition of and often replace. This one looks okay. I might replace it. But I'm not gonna replace it just yet because we're gonna do some on again, off again stuff. So now I'm just gonna pump the fluid in there. All right, that's all she blows. So I'll get that temporarily tightened. I'm just gonna hand tighten that. Why, you ask? Because we are likely gonna have to add a little bit more. We don't wanna have to remove because we don't wanna waste this very expensive fluid, but it's very easy to add, so. All right, well now that there's fluid in the pan, almost the correct amount of fluid, we're gonna perform the fluid level check procedure. So we're gonna go ahead and get the Tundra back down on the ground, and we're gonna fire it up, run it through the gears, get that fluid to circulate, get all the air bubbles to purge out, and then get it to the proper temperature so we can then pull the check plug and wait until the fluid runs to a trickle. Now, I did cover this in great detail in 2 other videos, and this is actually an addendum video to one of those, which I will link in the description below or link above right now. The one thing though that I want to add about the Tundra is some of you may have the towing package, in which case you're gonna have a little thermostatic switch right above your oil cooler up here, and that just requires an extra step. We're gonna push this in, and I've got this special tool that I made. This is a T-pin, this is a sewing T-pin. I have a lot of these for electrical diagnoses. So I just like that it has a little tail on it so I could install this extremely long zip tie. Why the heck am I installing this zip tie? Because I guarantee you your first time doing this, maybe even your 10th time doing this, you're gonna leave this needle up in there. You're gonna forget about it and you're gonna go on your merry way. And the loop will always be open. So we don't want that, so this just hangs low. And I can just see it from underneath the vehicle. So by the end of the job, when I'm looking underneath, truck is on the ground, I'm checking for leaks. Yep, we're gonna see this. Anyway, what we're gonna do is, with a screwdriver of any type, we're going to depress the center there with one hand, and with the other hand, I'm just gonna push that little needle through. And that's it. So you can see there's holes on both sides, and the needle just goes through, and this hangs down nice and low. So yeah, I can't possibly miss it. It's gonna be flapping in the breeze. And that just ensures that we are circulating all of the transmission fluid, so we're actually doing an accurate level check. Now, if you don't do this step, you could have the wrong transmission fluid level, so please don't forget to do this. If you forget that little tool and you find it at like your next oil change or something, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. It's stuck. I mean, these transmissions are a little finicky on temperature. Obviously, they really don't like to run cold. They really don't. I mean, what transmission likes to run hot? So obviously, do your best to not leave it in there, but it happens. So anyway, now we put the remaining quarts from our box into the transfer pump. Excellent, so we are primed and ready to go. I put the remaining quarts in here, and I bet you'll notice that after I fill the transmission, what I have left is about what I pumped out from the very beginning, because all these jobs are kind of the same. So we do truly use all 6 of these quarts. The Gen 2 Tundra has 3 different transmission options, so your temperature range for the fluid check mode is gonna vary based on which model you have. So check the VIN plate on your door card and just verify your transmission code. And for this one, the AB60F, the temperature that we wanna check the fluid between is gonna be at 99, to 111 degrees Fahrenheit. But the A750E is 97 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit, and the A760E and F is 127 to 138 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, of course, to check the transmission fluid temperature, I will be using the factory scan tool. I'll be using Toyota GTS Plus. However, is an infrared thermometer just as effective at getting an accurate fluid temperature as the factory scan tool? Spoiler alert, this method will definitely suffice. I'm gonna run you through both methods side by side and just show you how comparable they truly are. I've got my cable hooked up here, and now I'm just gonna turn the ignition on. And now I'm just gonna connect to the vehicle. And at this point too, I just wanna make sure that all my loads are off. So the headlights are off, the air conditioning is off, the radio's off, everything. Now for the fluid level check, we're gonna enter into System Select, Engine and ECT. Then we're gonna go to Active Test. And then from here, we're gonna connect TC and TE1. And then I'm gonna hit this arrow here from off to on. And when I turn it on, we're gonna get the lights here to blink. So let's see if that happens. Here we go, on, and there we go. Now, if you're not using GTS Plus, you still need to jumper some pins on the DLC. Terminals 13, which is TC, and 4, which is CG. I will put a diagram on the screen right now so you can see what the heck I'm doing. Now we're gonna fire up the truck and let it idle. Now, if you live in a hot temperature like I do here in Texas, and if the truck has been running for a while, check the temperature first and make sure that you haven't exceeded the temperature that you need, right? Because we're gonna try to bring the temperature up to 99 to 111 degrees. Under System Select, Engine and ECT, Data List, I like to sort by name so that it's easier to find. And you can see here that we have two AT oil temperatures, 1 and 2, and they're pretty similar but not identical. Normally after the vehicle's been sitting for a while, they'll both turn the same, but we are going to stick with AT oil temperature 1. That's the one we're gonna keep our eye on as we do this test. So might have to let the truck cool down before we can start this, but if the truck has been sitting overnight, which I highly recommend is how you start this out, then go ahead and fire up the truck and we're gonna start running it through the gears. So we're gonna go from park to reverse, to neutral, to drive. Then in drive mode, go ahead and change the gear from first to sixth, then all the way through, return the shift lever back to park. I personally will like to do this 3 or 4 times, and you don't want to go too fast. Just spend a couple seconds in each one of those gears. This is going to help circulate the fluid through each part of the transmission and give us a really accurate level reading. Okay, now here's the tricky part. You're going to move the shift lever to D, or drive, and then quickly move back and forth between neutral and drive for at least 6 seconds. This will activate the fluid temperature detection mode. Now you're going to notice on the instrument cluster that your indicator light for drive will illuminate. Then you're going to return the shift lever back to park, and in my case, I'm going to terminate the active test on GTS Plus, but you can go ahead and remove the jumper plugged into your DLC. Now we're going to let the truck continue to idle until we see that automatic transmission fluid temperature reach between 99 and 111 degrees. This is really cool. You don't have to continuously monitor it from underneath the vehicle if you don't want to, because the indicator D will come on when the fluid temp reaches 99 degrees, and once it starts to exceed 111, it will blink on the dash. I've got a little 5mm hex key that I'm ready with for my check plug. Still got my 24mm shallow socket to open up that fill plug when we're ready to do that. And there's my drain pan positioned right underneath my check plug. Okay, perfect. Here we are. We are clearly in between 99 and 111 degrees. We're at 102.9. Let's get under the truck. Assume it's gonna keep on climbing a little bit, but let's see what it looks like with our infrared thermometer and see how accurate it is. Slightly cooler, as expected, but not by much. So no time to waste. Let's pull that check plug out before we get out of temp range. All right, we're gonna have to add some fluid. Now I'm pulling the fill plug back out. See why we installed it only hand tight previously. And let's pump some more fluid in there until it runs out of the check plug at a steady trickle. Here we go. Oh, that didn't take long at all, did it? All right. I've got a brand new crush washer for the final install of our check plug. And you know it, the torque spec is 15 foot-pounds. The torque spec on the refill plug is 29 foot-pounds. And guess what we're not gonna forget right now? After you pull it out, just make sure that that plunger has come all the way back out and the surfaces are flush. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this DIY tutorial that I hope you don't follow. I know this is gonna be a hot topic, so I'm prepared for all the comments. That's fine. Come at me. Let's discuss it. I'm happy for the engagement, people. Tell me your favorite lubricants and tell me that you should change the filter every 30,000 miles or something. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.